This photo I took was taken at a place called Thornton Beach Park, which is in Daly City. It's just a couple blocks where I used to live with my family. And it's a place I used to go to to hike with my camera for sometimes hours because it was right by our house. I would take my dog there. But especially when I was going through a season of just deep depression, I would take my camera, I would go walk there, and I would just hike and take pictures and contemplate and pray, because it was really for these couple hours a day I would go there. Just kind of felt like it was the only time I could seek God, I could pray, I could even sense that He was present, even if He didn't seem present in my life. And in the photo, there's a bench that's at the bottom of that photo. And I remember going and sitting on this bench and just kind of looking out at the sunset and thinking and praying, thinking about life. I remember feeling a lot of what Pastor Ben preached on, the insignificance of life. And I just kind of felt like, as I was contemplating my life in faith, like, where is God? Where am I? What's going on here? And as I was thinking and contemplating, I decided to step back and take a picture of this bench. And it just led me to think, when in our culture, most of our culture will lead us to believe that we have to introspect, we have to contemplate and look inward to find meaning. When we hit a dark place, we have to search within, listen to our heart, and that's where meaning will be found, and we push forward with strength. But here was this bench, often a symbol of contemplation or thinking or rest even, and instead of looking inward, it was pointed outward. And I just thought this was a metaphor of how, for the Christian, for those who follow Christ, and even as Psalm 8 tells us, our own meaning, our own understanding of life, all of that isn't found when we turn inward, but when we look up, when we see God as a creator, when we look upon the majesty of the Lord our Creator God, as Psalm 8 declares. And in those moments when I was taking this picture, it was a time for me to remember that as much as I couldn't see that where I was, if I saw God's handiwork, His hand working in creation, it was a reminder that He was still doing something, even if I couldn't see it. And that's kind of what photography has been for me throughout my whole life, especially in my darkest moments of depression, but even just thinking about faith and creativity. Photography is one of those things that I felt like it forces me and it forces the viewer to literally see the world from a different perspective, to look through another lens and find a different perspective at life so that we can capture an angle or a lens that communicates something to the viewer. And for me as a believer, that photography was about capturing what is God doing, what is His glory and majesty in creation. It kind of reminds me about this story that some of you may be familiar with, written by J.R.R. Tolkien, called Leaf by Niggle. Niggle's not a swear word, it's just the name of a man who was a really insignificant man. Niggle was a painter, and he went his whole life painting. And he had this grand vision of painting a landscape. And in that landscape, at the center of it was a tree. And so Niggle goes about starting to paint this landscape, and he focuses on a tree, and he starts to get caught up on the tree. He wants to make it perfect. He paints every single leaf, and it gives it great detail. And he does all this painstaking work to paint over it, repaint it, fix it to every single tiny leaf. As Niggle's life goes on, he gets distracted by things. He has to repair his house. He has things to take care of. And eventually he dies, never finishing the painting. As the government agents come and they're going through his things, they find his painting, and they eventually use that painting to patch up a neighbor's house that has a hole in it. That neighbor's house is then destroyed, and all that remains of Niggle's painting is one leaf from that tree that he spent almost his whole life on. Niggle then goes to heaven, and we get this picture of him in heaven where he is walking through the fields, and he sees in the distance the tree, his tree that he painted. And in the backdrop was the landscape that he envisioned, but he declares it was so much better than he could have ever imagined or even painted. And this insignificant man whose painting all seemed for naught, he's long forgotten, only one little leaf remains and nothing else of his work, he seems really insignificant. He goes to heaven and realizes all that he was painting was simply just shedding light or giving us a window, giving his viewers and his neighbors, whoever he was painting for, a window into the reality to come. And what J.R.R. Tolkien does in this short story, it's really a commentary on his own creativity, of feeling like he spent all his life working on this, what he thought was an insignificant work of the Lord of the Rings, of Middle-earth, not knowing what would come to pass after he passed away. But if he could somehow give his readers and his viewers a picture, a glimpse into the new heavens and new earth, the life to come, then he did his job. Now, we all know that J.R.R. Tolkien went on to be one of the greatest fantasy writers of all time. But I love that story because for me, it's this example that however insignificant we feel in life, like Psalm 8 declares, however much we may feel like, who are we that you would think of us, O God? Even looking at creation, you're such a great and glorious God. We're nothing in comparison of it. And yet God gives us this task in creation, like he declares in Psalm 8, to have dominion, to subdue the earth. In that is also, I think, to be sub-creators or co-creators with God in artistic means and creativity. And as we go about that, whether it's photography for me or any other creative means for everyone else, even in our work, we're crafting something to give people a glimpse into those new heavens and new earth. Some small window that people can look at and say that this is a picture of the great glory of our majestic God, and it's a picture of what's to come for our God as creator, for all those who find their purpose, not looking inward, but looking up and outward at God as our creator.